I was just talking to a family yesterday. They brought in their little 3-year-old. She was coughing, and they were like, is it okay that she's coughing? I said it's wonderful that she's coughing, but we don't want to tell kids that sniffle, that runny nose, that cough, that diarrhea, that vomit, that headache, that fever, especially, that is not sickness. We need to stop calling that sick. I say to them, oh my gosh, isn't it incredible that your body is so strong? Look how strong your immune system is, that it's making you cough up all the bad stuff. Look how smart your body is. Look, we have to empower kids to know that those symptoms did not come from a bacteria, did not come from a virus. It came from their very, very intelligent immune system.
Hi guys, I'm your host Megan Van Diepender, and this is the Empowerhood Podcast. I am so happy to have you here. Motherhood is hard, and we are going to talk about all of the hard things that just are not talked about enough. So buckle up and enjoy this episode. So hi Rhiannon.
Hello, how are you, Megan?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. Another exciting day in Saratoga.
Awesome. So everyone out there listening in today, we have Dr. Rhiannon Clauss. Am I saying your last name right?
You are.
Okay, awesome. So she is going to tell us all about her journey to becoming a chiropractor for pregnancy and pediatrics. So I'm really excited to hear about this. So why don't you start off with a little bit about you? Who is Rhiannon?
Who is Rhiannon? I feel like I'm a cat, like I've lived a lot of lives. I grew up in the Capital District, and when I went to college, I knew I wanted to go into science. So I went to Boston University for biomedical engineering and freaked out because I was not ready to live in a city. And so then I said, what is safe? And so I went to Plattsburgh State, and I became a Spanish teacher, actually.
Oh, no way.
My bachelor's degree is in Spanish. A lot of people don't know that. And I was hired by a family to homeschool their children, and they needed a foreign language. And the parents were chiropractors.
Okay.
And so I also part-time worked in their office and alongside teaching their children. And I saw so many miracles in their office. And so after a few years, I said, that's it. I'm going to go to chiropractic school. So that's how I ended up as a chiropractor by way of being a Spanish teacher.
Wow. Wow. What a little journey, huh? But
Yeah.
it still involved children too. So you were like a teacher for children. Is that what kind of brought you to your love of chiropractic work, like for pediatrics, or what kind of brought you there?
Really in terms of pediatrics, I mean, first of all, the basis of chiropractic is really the nervous system. And children, their nervous system is growing and developing at such a rapid rate that if we really want to change the trajectory of health and healthcare, starting with kids is really where we need to be. But also just, of course, it was exciting to see adults, have their vertigo resolved, or their sciatica, or their anxiety, or seizures. And, there's so many incredible things. But when you see a little baby who couldn't latch, or when you see a child that's been having seizures or is on the spectrum and has never been able to look their parents in the eye, and just the incredible connections that are made when we're able to tap into the nervous system and help it develop in a healthy, regulated way, you just see so many changes. And so, yeah, I think that's a big part of it, is just the fact that the bigger impact we can have on our society as a whole, when you raise people with a different healthcare paradigm where they understand that their body is meant to be self-healing and self-regulating and not rely on drugs necessarily for all of our healthcare solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like going to the root cause, and starting with ourselves and our children is really the place to go. Because I mean, like you said, we're building up another generation, so it's like if we start there, we can kind of make a little bit more of an impact.
But believe me, I do love my senior patients. I love my senior patients, and it's so rewarding to see them regain quality of life, because our society kind of writes our seniors off. They, it's, well, we'll give you this drug to deal with this symptom, and oh, well, that's common because of your age, as opposed to, well, why are they going down this path? Like, what has set the stage for their body to not be able to function optimally, right? So yeah, I love my senior patients just as much. I tend to be more known for pregnancy and pediatrics.
Yeah. Now when I met with you on Wednesday, you said that your practice is different. It's more of like a neurological approach.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, well, and it's interesting for me to have to distinguish myself as a neurological chiropractor, because chiropractic at its core is neurological. It is the understanding that the brain controls and coordinates the function of every single cell in the body. And for the body to function optimally, we need that communication system to be working properly. Somewhere along the way in chiropractic, there became a very biomechanical focus. And in the neurologically focused chiropractic world, it's in circles that I kind of am in, we consider that we call that first century chiropractic, where it became this bone out of place, putting pressure on nerve. And now our job is to move that bone off of the nerve.
Okay.
But what we know now in the past 20, 30 years of science is that's not really how it works. It's really about the neuroplasticity of the brain and changing the way the brain is perceiving our body and our environment and the way it's responding to our environment, and allowing the brain to have an appropriate response. And so, especially in the Capital District, we see a lot of people's understanding of chiropractic being, oh, well, I need to get my back cracked, or I need to get that in alignment, or can you put that back into place for me? And so when you're thinking about having your infant or your toddler or your school-aged kid seeing a chiropractor, I mean, that sounds kind of crazy if what you think is happening is me moving their bones and cracking their backs and their necks, right?
Scary.
What's the first thing that you say when you hand your little baby to somebody to hold? You say, please be careful with their head and hold their neck. And so I really lead a lot with education, and for people to understand that your nervous system is constantly adapting and reacting to our internal environment, what is happening inside of our body, and our external environment. There's physical stresses, there's chemical stresses. We live in a very toxic world, and there's emotional stresses. And so there's a lot to healthcare. There's a lot to holistic wellness, right? And those are big buzzwords. But the foundation needs to be regulated neurology. And then we layer on quality nutrition, good sources of water, optimal movement, right? Mindset, healthy thought processes, sleep, which is something that you work so closely with. And that event that we were at on Wednesday night, they were talking so much about toxins in this toxic world that we live in. And so in the pediatric population that I serve, a huge part of it is sensory and spectrum cases. And, there's been a big push in the past decade of parents are looking for, okay, what can we do to clean up the diet, right? Like, let's get rid of chemicals. Let's get on the essential oil train, which is great. Let's get rid of gluten. Let's get rid of casein. Let's get rid of red dye number 40, all of these things. And again, that's all great. But they're looking at this other level of, well, why were those toxins so troublesome for that child and not another, right? And what it always comes down to is the dysregulated neurology is the basis that now we can't handle stresses that maybe other nervous systems, other people could handle.
Can you give me an example of like what you do when someone comes into your office, like when it's neurological based like that? I know you said you have some type of scan that you do that you're the only one that has. Can you give us a little example of what you do?
It's really interesting that you just said that when you just like kind of clarified and said, what would you do when it's neurological based? There is not a single thing that happens in your body that isn't neurological based. When you cough, that had to do with your neurology, right? When you blink, when you sleep, when you use the restroom. But it's interesting because when people hear I'm a neurological chiropractor, they will instantly go, oh, well, I know somebody that had a brain injury, or I know somebody with seizures, or because they're trying to think of like these complex neuro cases as opposed to like, are you constipated? You should probably get your nervous system checked. Do you wake up 3 times in the night? You should probably get your nervous system checked, right? Or if they don't hear the neurological part, they hear chiropractor. And then they're like, oh, my sister with neck pain, and my boss with migraines, and my brother-in-law with sciatica. Because we have been trained in our culture to think this symptom sends me to that doctor, right? Like I have sinus problems, I'm going to go to the ENT. I have plantar fasciitis, I'm going to go to the podiatrist. We have separated people's bodies into like all these separate systems as if they don't talk to each other. And what is the system that coordinates every other system is the nervous system. So in my office, you could come in. I just had a new patient yesterday who was completely wellness, absolutely no complaints, living their best life, has a beautiful family, a thriving career, pregnant, everything's great. come in to make sure, hey, how's my nervous system doing, and find out where it's at and what can I do to support it and maintain optimal health.
Mm-hmm.
That is ideal, right?
Yeah.
Like, do I want to take care of the babies that are struggling? Of course I do. But I also want people to normalize, you know what? I just had a baby. The birth process is traumatic no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get them checked.
Yeah.
So what happens in my office is, number one, we take a really thorough history, and they tend to be surprised by the questions on my intake. For example, if you brought me a 7-year-old
Mm-hmm.
or any pediatric case, we're going to go all the way back to mom's pregnancy. Was it difficult trying to conceive? Was there stress during the pregnancy?
Okay.
What was the birth process like?
Mm-hmm.
In this country, birth intervention is the norm.
Yeah.
And people think C-sections are easier on baby and mom. Absolutely not.
Nope.
We use manual vacuum forceps extraction on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it's wild the amount of tension and pressure that is put on the upper spine of an infant,
Yeah.
let alone the mom,
Right.
right? I mean,
Right.
think about what mom goes through. And so we go all the way back to that because we want to look at that developing nervous system and what stage was set for it,
Yep.
right? So the history is important. And another thing that's so important, especially when I'm dealing with pediatrics, and this is not to exclude the dads. So dads out there, I know you're there and I know you're on board, but I mean, the reality is we need to listen to mom's intuition. We need to listen to parents' intuition. When a mom is coming and saying, hey, I know my child and they were this way when they were 2,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're this way when they're 3, and something happened and something isn't right. And we have to listen to them, and we have to, really pay attention to what we have to observe the children. We have to listen to mom and dad and teachers. So that's step one. And right after we go through all of that is we get the nervous system scans.
Okay.
That you mentioned. So when I say scans, a lot of times people think like an MRI machine.
Right.
They think some big production. They think X-rays. No, the scans in my office, they are handheld. They are little, but they give us so much data.
Okay.
So what I'm looking for is there dysregulation? Is there interruption to the harmonious flow and communication of the brain and the body,
Okay.
right? To the flow of communication of innate intelligence through the body,
Okay.
the innate intelligence that we have to self-heal and self-regulate and thrive. And so the scans allow me to, number one, detect it. Is that there? If not, great. Come back and get checked in a few months or a year. But otherwise, if there's no disruption to your nervous system, there's nothing I can do with you. Right. Now I have a community of other providers in the area that, of course, I can refer people to for other resources. But I mean, it is like 1 in a million people that don't have a dysregulated nervous system. Right. Yep. So we can detect it, we can locate it. Where is it? And then we can measure it. We can quantify it. Okay, how long has this been there? And create a very specific care plan to how are we going to correct this? How are we going to restore proper nervous system function?
Okay.
So care plans in my office are super, super specific to the patient, based on 10 different factors. 6 of them come from the scans and 4 come from lifestyle. Are there medications involved? Are there other therapies involved? What is home life like, right? Like, are mom and dad going through a divorce and there's a lot of tension? Or is there a new baby in the house and maybe we're not getting the attention we used to get? Or, you have to look at what the lifestyle is too. What's the diet?
Yep. That's awesome.
So that's what we do.
Okay. And you do the same thing for adults as well.
For adults, whether they're 0 years old or 100 years old. My oldest patient right now is 95.
Wow. How is their nervous system?
Well, I have to tell you, so with adults, so this is different than children. With adults, many times I will order x-rays. I used to take my own x-rays, but my x-ray equipment is still in my old office in Lake Placid. So nobody has taken me up on a road trip yet to go get their x-rays in Lake Placid. So I just order them locally. There's an imaging center very close to my office, and we work very well together. The reason that I order x-rays on adults is there's been a lot of physical traumas usually in the history. And we have to see what level of degeneration is there. Anyone who has seen a chiropractor themselves or has gone on TikTok or YouTube and seen what they think is the way chiropractic adjustments all look.
Yeah.
Not all techniques are made for all people.
Yeah.
And not all techniques are appropriate at all times. I mean, through a care plan for a patient, I may switch techniques halfway through a care plan because of what their nervous system is needing at that time.
Okay.
And so that's why it's so important for us to have so many different techniques to apply.
Right.
But x-rays also, allow us to see what is a safe and effective technique for that patient. And it also contributes to how difficult is it going to be for the nervous system to respond to the adjustments based on structural aspects.
Okay.
The x-rays are not determining where I'm adjusting or what I'm adjusting, because those are structure, not nervous system.
Right.
So that is a difference with adults. But with your question of what do their nervous systems look like, I will tell you, I have had patients in their 70s with beautiful x-rays compared to people in their 20s.
Yeah.
And what is the difference? Cell phones.
Yeah.
Everyone is staring down at their cell phone and
I
putting
believe it.
so much tension on their spinal cord because of the way that they are altering the structure of their cervical curve.
Yeah.
I'm sure in your field with sleep,
Yeah.
I just referred somebody to you yesterday.
Oh, thank you.
Because we were taking him from restoration care to wellness care, but sleep is still a major issue for him. And I said, what you're doing with screens every single night is having such a huge impact on your sleep. I'd really like you to speak to Megan, because we're at a point where I'm doing supportive care for his nervous system. There's only so much I can do if lifestyle doesn't change on the other.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, our seniors, the ones that have nervous systems that are more resilient and more adaptable, are the ones that aren't so medicated. The ones that say, you know what, my grandma didn't need cholesterol medication, I don't want cholesterol medication. Because we're really seeing the long-term effects now on quality of life from people being on medications for such an extended time period.
Yeah.
It completely changes the balance and the set point and the regulation of our autonomic nervous system. And what you do in with your work with sleep is directly impacting and working with the autonomic nervous system. So I know you know that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even like the other night when we were at that event, it's like just saying that like you don't have to take these medications, or you shouldn't be on birth control, you shouldn't be on these things for so long, because again, it's like a Band-Aid on your body and it's not actually fixing the root cause.
I can't tell you how many women I have seen in the past 6 months that are on like a depot shot or a long-term, like 3-year birth control, and they're just bleeding for months at a time. And so then the doctor's solution is to then also put them on an oral contraceptive. And I'm like, so you are on double birth control. You're on birth control to fix what the other birth control created. And it's just, but it happens in every way. People are on medications for depression or anxiety or whatever, and then they need to have another medication to deal with the side effects of that medication. And I see people on, 3-4 different allergy medications at a time. And there's just,
it's endless. It's an endless cycle.
And the analogy I always use with my patients, no matter what symptom we're talking about, but it's always easy to throw out migraines, to say, do you think your migraine is an Excedrin deficiency? It is not. Do you think your reflux is a deficiency in Tums? Like, we need to look at, why did the body create that? The body doesn't create things for no reason. And this is the perfect time of year to have those conversations with my practice members, because everybody's coming down with something, right? Everybody's coming down with something. I just got bronchitis last week.
Oh, wow.
Why? I ran myself into the ground. I traveled for seminar because I'm constantly doing continuing education. I opened a new practice location in Saratoga. We had a big party here at the Palette last week. And I didn't have time to get good sleep. I didn't prioritize what I was putting in my body. I didn't, and that's what happens. I didn't support my nervous system. And unfortunately, I don't have a neurological chiropractor right now.
For yourself. Can you scan yourself?
I have a lovely, lovely friend of mine who's an excellent chiropractor here locally. But I have not, made the time to see her. I literally only went home to sleep last week.
Yeah.
But the reason it's such a great time to talk about it with practice members is this time of year, what does everybody talk about? We're getting sick. We're getting sick. We're getting sick. Well, number one, it is not a coincidence that it happens at the holidays when we're eating garbage.
No.
right? When we have less sunlight all of a sudden, so
Yeah.
we're getting less sunlight. And it's just we're changing all of the healthy things that come to us just naturally throughout the summer
Yeah.
season.
Yep.
Um, but I was just talking to a family yesterday. They brought in their little 3-year-old. She was coughing, and they were like, is it okay that she's coughing? I said it's wonderful that she's coughing. But we don't want to tell kids that sniffle, that runny nose, that cough, that diarrhea, that vomit, that headache, that fever, especially, that is not sickness. We need to stop calling that sick. I say to them, oh my gosh, isn't it incredible that your body is so strong? Look how strong your immune system is, that
Yeah.
it's making you cough up all the bad stuff. Look how smart your body is. Look, we have to empower kids to know that those symptoms did not come from a bacteria, did not come from a virus. It came from their very, very intelligent immune system.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just such backwards language that we
Yep.
have.
Well, and that goes for really any ailment that we get too. It's not our body failing us, it's our body
Yeah.
telling us that we need to make changes and support it where it needs to be supported.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's huge with kids too. Just with like a fever is actually your body fighting off whatever you have.
Yeah.
So, just suppressing it. I mean, sometimes you have to, whatever with Tylenol or whatnot, but like suppressing it is really.
I don't know what happened when we were kids. I don't know how old you are, but I'm 40. And, back in the 80s, our parents were like made to be petrified for us to have a fever over 102, right?
Yeah.
They think you're going to die if it's 105. And, we now know that that's not true. And also, to explain to people the reason fevers happen, right?
Right.
We have a much wider range of temperature that we can survive in than bacteria and viruses, but also that increased temperature helps mobilize our immune system cells to go and fight and attack and heal us faster. And so when we take things like Tylenol to lower the fever, or when we take an antibiotic to get rid of an infection instead of let our body fight it off, now our immune system didn't learn how to fight it itself. And so that's why we have those recurring over and over and over and over.
Yeah. I had to learn that. I mean, because I was scared when my daughter was little. Like, I thought a fever was horrible and you feel so bad. But then when you cover it up with Tylenol, there she is running around like a normal human being, even though she's sick. And she's not resting and letting her body repair and recover and fight off what it is. So it's like it took years for us to learn that and just be like, you know what? You need to go lay down. The fever is telling you that you need to go rest.
Yeah, trust how smart your body is. And it's so empowering, especially for little girls. I think that with little boys, the language that is used so often is, oh, don't you want to grow and be big and strong? And with little girls, it's very much like, oh, don't you want to be a pretty princess, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's so empowering to say to all of our children, boys, girls, or whatever, however they identify, is just your body is so strong and your body is so smart, and to learn to trust their intuition and what their bodies are telling them.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking to what you said about, when you first had your daughter, parents they're petrified, especially as a new parent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell instantly when a mom comes into my office, whether it's her first or her third, because with the third, she's just like, yeah, they're running around. What they'll come back. They're like a boomerang, and so you're relying on that pediatrician.
Yeah.
And I had so many conversations this week with parents who are like, well, the pediatrician said we can start cereal now. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Number one, why in the world does your child need cereal? I mean, and I don't talk about religion in my practice at all. It's not appropriate to, nor would I anyway. But whatever you believe in, God, aliens, Mother Nature, I don't care. But did nature make cereal? Absolutely not. Cereal is made in a factory.
Yeah.
Your child's digestive system is not saying, I'm ready for ultra processed food. Like, that is insanity. And
oh my God.
And but sometimes if I speak that way, it can make them feel like, oh, well, was I dumb? No, absolutely not, because you think, oh, I should trust my doctor. But so I try to always explain it to them logically and with science. And so I'd say, first of all, every single one of these parents that said that to me this week, their child doesn't even have a tooth yet.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, do you know how your baby knows it's ready for real food, and not milk, not breast milk, or if you're having to supplement? When the digestive system is ready and able to process food, actual food, a signal is sent to the brain And now the brain sends the signal down so that teeth start cutting in.
Wow.
You don't cut teeth in until your digestive tract is ready for food.
Okay.
So why are we trying to give baby food before they even have a tooth? It's
Yeah.
craziness.
Yeah.
And then we don't know why our kids' digestive systems are all screwed up.
Right.
Because we're shoving, processed grains into their tummies before they're ready for even a normal whole food, like a banana or an avocado or a sweet potato.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's difficult sometimes because you want to empower parents, but sometimes the fact that they're getting conflicting information is disempowering and they just feel like, well, I'll never be able to do anything right.
Yeah, I mean, it's very discouraging. I mean, just because, like, that's the information out there in the world, right? That's the norm. That's what pediatricians recommend. That's what you find online, all of these things. And especially as children, the processed food to me is just, like, insane. Even like going to a restaurant and, like, the kids' menu is different than the adult menu. Why can't it just be a smaller portion of what adults are eating? So, like, America has just, like, really set us up for a very hard time with children. And of course, all that processed food creates an inflammatory response in the body. And that's not good for, digestion or whatever. And I'm sure it's not good for your nervous system if you're constantly.
Well, yeah, we talk about physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. So when I say physical stress, most adults think, oh, I got in a car accident, or I do heavy lifting for work, or they're always thinking of like some physical exertion. And when we're talking about kids, they always think like, oh, they fell down, or I might have bumped their head, but the reality is physical stress for kids, 99.9% of the time is from the birth process, from birth trauma. And then also the postures that they get in because they're using technology. And for adults, for teenagers and adults, we're sitting all the time. We have engineered a society that we don't have to do anything. We don't walk upstairs because we have elevators. We don't even carry our groceries in anymore because people deliver them for us.
Right.
I mean, people are using segways to not have to walk around cities. Like it's just insane. We've engineered a world where we don't move our bodies at all. And so that is much more physically stressful than when somebody says, oh, well, is it because I go for a run or is it because I work out? Do you know how many people will ask me after their first adjustment, should I not go work out after this? I'm like, why? Your body is fully ready to integrate everything you're about to do. That's wonderful. What I don't want you to do is go home and sit on the couch.
Yeah. Sitting has a bigger stress on your body than actual exercise. I mean, the human body is meant to move.
Yeah. And when we are sitting, we're sitting right on our sacrum. Okay. And the sacrum and the occiput is the base of the skull. They are pumping all day, every day, this amazing fluid around our brain and spinal cord to bring oxygen and nutrients to all of our neuron cells in our central nervous system and to remove the waste products of cellular metabolism. And when that is not pumping, that fluid gets stagnant. And we're not having healthy CNS cells then. People know it's important for their heart to be pumping all the time. Nobody wants to stop that from pumping, but they're not thinking about that sacro-occipital pump there. So that's physical stress. And then speaking of, we were just talking about foods. When we talk about chemical stress, the ultra processed foods that are going into our bodies that, when I speak to moms groups, because I speak all over the Capital District to different groups. I speak at the senior center. I speak to moms groups. I speak at the co-op. I go to schools. When I speak to moms groups, one of the most common questions I get is, well, what do I do if they're having a problem with milk? What if they can't drink? And I'm like, why are you trying to give them milk? I just turn it right back around and say, why are you trying to give them milk? And they're like, well, aren't I supposed to? And I'm like, but why? Tell me, please give me a reason why. I don't know how the dairy lobbies from 20 years ago have still permeated.
It seriously is so insane.
Now, but dairy is not an optimal source of calcium. Dark leafy greens are a way better source of calcium than dairy. But I give them very simple facts. We are the only species on the planet that consumes the milk of another species.
I was just going to say that. Yes.
We are the only species on the planet that consumes milk past infancy. You don't see grown cows drinking cow milk. You don't. What is the purpose of milk? It is to get us bigger and fatter as quickly as possible. So as an adult, if your goal is to get big and fat as quickly as possible, consume dairy. Okay. And I'm not saying that I don't consume dairy. I'm not saying that I'm dairy free. I'm just saying when we're making decisions for our children, we have to get out of what society told us to do because that's what they want us to buy at the grocery store, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really look at, does my child really need this? And when they say, well, what do I give them instead? How about water?
Yeah.
Don't you think water is really important for our body? But I also say give them bone broth.
Yeah.
I recommend bone broth to all of my patients all the time. I give them my own personal bone broth recipe. I mean, there's a reason that our ancestors did that, not just to use every portion of the animal, but it heals our gut. We need collagen to create all of the tissues of our body.
Yeah.
People are buying all this expensive collagen powder.
Yeah.
Why don't you just make it in the form that your body is meant to absorb it in to begin with at home?
Yeah.
It's delicious. You can drink it. You can make a soup with it. You can cook your rice in it. You can whatever.
Great idea.
But they're always just like, well, juice or milk. And I'm like, what happened to water?
Yeah.
You're walking around with your 1 gallon jug of water because you saw somebody on Instagram doing it, but you don't think your child needs water.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. So we talk about physical stress, chemical stress. So food, what's the cleaning products in our houses?
Mm-hmm.
What are the lotions and potions that we put on our bodies, which is what I loved about that event we went to on Wednesday night that you keep referring to, the Radiant Life Expo at Her Strength Studio, and Fix Wellness and Beauty has a ton of clean beauty products here locally, which I'm always recommending my patients to go there.
Yeah.
Because what we put on our skin goes directly into our bloodstream.
Yep.
So important. So physical stress, chemical stress, and then emotional or mental stress. The thoughts that we have a direct impact on how our body functions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's a big part of the work that you do in sleep.
It's a huge part, yes. In health in general, but yes, especially for sleep.
Yeah. People need to know that your thoughts are not you. You are not your thoughts. Your thoughts come from programming in your brain. We are programmed from before we are born, not from when we are born, from before we are born. And our brain loves two things. It loves what it knows, and it loves to be able to predict. It wants to be able to just do things that it's always done. You got to think your brain is receiving millions of pieces of information every single second. The only way it can possibly process that is to take the majority of it and go, yep, I've seen this before. I know what to do with this. We've got an autopilot system for this, right? And so for example, if mom is having a really stressful pregnancy, maybe there's been complications, maybe there's a difficult, tense relationship, maybe there's financial issues, maybe whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
When mom is in a state of stress, when that stress system is stuck on, now that regulation of the autonomics, all those stress hormones that are pumping through mom's blood, that's going right into the baby. And that developing nervous system is now developing in a stress stuck on way.
Yeah.
And so it's my job to find out how dysregulated is that autonomic nervous system. The first scan that we do is an HRV, a heart rate variability scan, that shows us the balance between parasympathetic and sympathetic. Really, to me, that's an oxymoron. I use the term balance because that's the term the software uses. But I don't like that. And I tell my patients all the time, it's kind of impossible to say that you're balanced between sympathetic and parasympathetic. And for listeners out there, because I know, Megan and I are kind of getting in the weeds here, because we're nerdy like that. But
totally.
Parasympathetic, I know this is not, politically correct, but I use this in my office all the time. I say, parasympathetic, it starts with a P, think pee and poop. You are born, your baby is born being able to eat, sleep, and poop, right? And so think of parasympathetic as digestion and healing and growing and repairing and immune system and resting, sleeping, all that good stuff that promotes health and recharges us. Sympathetic is the other side of the coin, S for stress, right? That's stress stuck on. You can never be in parasympathetic and sympathetic at the same time. You are all in one or all in the other at any given second. So to say balance really doesn't make sense. To what I look at on that scan when we are in the middle is we are not 50-50. We are 100% adaptable, able to shift into either sympathetic or parasympathetic as our environment demands. We want to have an appropriate response to our environment, right? When a deer runs out in front of your car, I hope that your sympathetic instantly kicks in, you slam on your brakes, your heart rate goes up, your breathing goes up, you gripped that steering wheel, white knuckled it, right? You come to a stop, You wait there, hopefully for a few minutes, because if there's one deer, there's probably two more in upstate New York. And then after a few minutes, you keep going down the road and your heart rate is back to normal. You're breathing normal again. You're not sweating anymore. You shifted back into parasympathetic. But how many people do you know that are living in a constant state of stress stuck on?
Yeah.
Constantly. And what do our physicians do? They want to help their patients. They have compassion.
Yeah.
No physician, no medical doctor becomes a medical doctor and practices medicine without the intention of wanting to help people.
Yeah.
They have the best intentions and they have the biggest hearts.
Of course.
It's just that unfortunately, the way that medicine has evolved has only given them two tools. It's given them medications or it's given them surgical options.
Right.
And so, they want to offer solutions to their patients. And so they say, well, here's this medication that might help with your anxiety.
Yeah.
But we never corrected what caused the anxiety to begin with.
Right.
And so that dysregulation is still there under the surface, wreaking havoc. And dysregulation, well, what happens to dysregulated cells? What do we call dysregulated cells in our body? When cells are dysregulated and they become out of control, what do we call that? Cancer.
Wow.
A dysregulated body, a dysregulated nervous system leads to systemic issues over time. Am I saying that a chiropractic subluxation causes cancer? No. My point is that if we keep ignoring root causes and we keep ignoring systemic issues, and we keep trying to treat or fix or cure what the end result is down the line, that's what our problem is. We keep doing these walks and these fundraisers to get a cure for this and a cure for that. But why don't we stop trying to cure it and figure out what caused it?
Yeah.
It's so backwards.
Yeah.
It is so backwards.
Yeah.
That's what I really try to help empower my practice members to look at every aspect of their life, their thoughts, their trauma, their toxins. Where is this coming from? How can we clean this up for you so that you don't need to see me 3 times a week for the rest of your life? I love my patients, but I don't want to be a crutch for them either.
Right.
I want to get them back to a state of balance and where their nervous system needs to be, help support them with that, but give them tools in their lifestyle to maintain that as well, so they don't keep going on this health roller coaster.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I 100% agree. I think you have to go back, and I like how you do that history check, because I think like you said, the human body is incredible and it can adapt to really, really stressful situations, but it doesn't mean it's a good thing, because it will catch up with you at some point in time, and that's where the cancer, the heart disease, all that stuff starts to come in. So, I mean, same with sleep. It's like if you don't sleep for so long, your body will adapt, but that doesn't mean that it's a good thing. It's not getting the recovery it needs, and then that sickness, that illness is going to catch up with you.
And in terms of the nervous system, sleep is so important.
Yeah.
Because that's when your brain maps things. That's when your brain, we talk about neuroplasticity, which is the nervous system's ability to constantly be remodeling and adapting and creating new pathways and new programs as the environment that it's in changes, right? We used to think the brain was one way and it never changes and it never heals, but now we know it is completely the opposite. But, as an entrepreneur, I'm sure it's, and especially women have this badge of honor for how little sleep they can get by.
Oh, it's a brag, right? It's everybody. It's everybody. I mean, I think that
is not something to be proud of here, sister.
I know.
Like, no.
I mean, that's one of my biggest missions, is to change that narrative, for sure, because it's a biological need to sleep. It's not something that you can just keep putting off.
It is. And quality sleep as
exactly.
well. Quality sleep.
Yep. So that's what I do. Yep.
I know. And I think it's so wonderful.
Yeah.
So that's really what I'm looking forward to in 2024. There's a lot of things happening right now with my practice. Really working on getting other practitioners on board. Right now, I'm a one-woman show, and I would really love to just get some more chiropractors with the training and certifications in neurologically focused chiropractic care, so that we can serve more people, and really strengthen my collaborations with people like yourself, Fallon's Pharmacy, and nurse practitioners in the area, and just people that can help support people along their journeys in other ways, because I think we really need to be a community. And I'm not going to be a jack of all trades, nor do I want to be.
Yeah.
And we have some really incredible resources and intelligent practitioners here in this area that
Absolutely.
a lot of people don't know about. And I'm looking forward to really strengthening those collaborations and giving my patients more exposure to them.
Yeah. And I mean, even just putting this information out there, for everyone in the United States, especially in the capital region, but I did not know this stuff about chiropractors. So, I mean, putting that out there for children, for adults, for
I
pregnancy.
will tell you, it's a good point that you say this is nationwide. The best place to find, well, the only place to find a neurologically focused pediatric chiropractor is PXDocs, so PXDocs.com.
Okay.
That there's a ton of articles, videos, research, but there's also a doctor locator, and you
Okay.
can type in your zip code and find a pediatric chiropractor who's neurologically focused in their area. I am certified through the Pediatric Experience. It's an excellent organization, constantly growing, constantly certifying new chiropractors. So that is a
Awesome.
place that people can find and get connected to someone close to them.
Great. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'll link that below. Where can we find you, Rhiannon?
Where am I? My practice is Capital District Family Chiropractic in Albany and also in Saratoga, New York. My website is cdfchiro.com. And on Facebook, we're Capital District Family Chiropractic. On Instagram, we are CDF Chiro. We have a ton of content. I put out 2 long videos every week, and I respond to DMs. It is me if you ask a question through there. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And
Awesome.
who knows, if you ask me this question in a year, I'm curious what that answer would be, because it's a
Yeah.
lot different now than it was a year ago.
Right.
So,
You're rapidly growing, which is amazing. And I'm excited to grow
well,
with you as well. That's awesome.
just 3 years ago, I was in Lake Placid.
Yeah.
So, a lot has changed
Yeah.
in my 13 years in practice. But I know that I'm staying here. I know that I'm
Okay.
staying here, and I just really look forward to just bringing more quality care and education to
Yeah.
this area.
Yeah.
And I actually, I really want to pull back in the pediatricians, because we were talking about that earlier, and I'm really looking forward to strengthening my connections with some pediatricians
Yeah.
here, because it's not fair to lump them all together and to say, all pediatricians are recommending X, Y, and Z. Just like it can become frustrating for me sometimes when people hear chiropractor and they're like, oh, she must do this, right? She
Exactly.
must crank backs. She must snap necks. I promise you that is not what I'm doing in my office. Which is why we also try to put out content and videos of me adjusting or of people's
Right.
testimonials. But yeah, so there are some wonderful pediatricians in this area, some holistic pediatricians, or just some open-minded pediatricians and medical doctors in general. That, I mean, I
Yeah.
love my primary care doctor, Dr. Bevilacqua. So I'm really looking forward to strengthening those connections in the community. And the people that are listening to this that aren't local to us, though they do it, that does exist in your community. I promise it does.
Yeah.
It just takes work. Go to your Facebook groups, your local moms groups on Facebook, or your moms get together groups, and talk to other moms, talk to other parents, ask the teachers in the school.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you got to get through back channels sometimes to
Right.
get some good referrals, but you can find people that are in alignment with what you want to do for your family.
Good. I guess my last question would be, so parents out there, families out there, what would be something that they should look for to go see you? I know you can go see you totally well and thriving, but I feel like a lot of times we don't reach out for help until something's wrong, right? So you said moms should listen to their intuition. Like, what would you recommend to come see you, or someone else in a different state?
Okay. I would recommend well, first of all, if there was any sort of intervention when baby was born,
Okay.
was the labor induced? Did they manually use their hands to assist your baby coming out in any way, whether a vaginal or C-section delivery? Did they use forceps? Did they use vacuum extraction? Anything like that, 100% get your child checked. Even if they weren't just born yesterday, I don't care if they're 15 years old. I don't care if they're 30 years old.
Okay.
Get checked if there was any birth intervention at all.
Yeah.
But also when you see your child, having digestive issues or being frustrated a lot, just seeming like they're not comfortable in their body, right? And children don't know how to express that. And so it comes out in form of tantrums and frustration or hitting or, and what do pediatricians say or what do teachers say? They'll grow out of it. They don't grow out of it. They don't grow out of colic. They don't grow out of ear infections. They don't grow out of tantrums. They just grow into the next stage of it.
Yeah.
So trust your gut that, hey, maybe I don't have a bad kid. Maybe there's just some bad neurology here, right? Your child is not bad. They don't have a bad digestive system. They don't have a bad immune system. Their neurology is just dysregulated and confused. And I don't know about you, but when I'm confused, when my GPS is confusing me, I get very frustrated and I'm not driving very well. So, but yeah, the biggest thing is that birth process. I mean, it's more common than you think.
Yeah, that's huge. Thank you. Because I just wanted to clarify that so moms know, when to contact you for their children. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rhiannon. This is like a lot of great information, and I'm excited to share it. I know it's really going to help people.
Me.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much, Megan. And I really look forward to working with you in particular this coming year.
Same. I can't wait. Have a great day in Saratoga. Tell everyone to say hi. And
I will.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Empowerhood is brought to you by Flourish Everyday Coaching. Check them out in the link below. And again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. If you could take 60 seconds of your time and leave us an Apple review, this helps share the news about this podcast and help women all over the world. If you want to see the video version of this podcast, you can go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next episode.